You can have all the budget and all the appliances and deploy them all over the place in your information security program and feel like you're the new hotness because you've got the best firewalls, the best EDRs, all these things. But how do you know that your security controls are actually working as they're designed? In this video, I'm going to be looking at adversarial attack platform Cymulate and looking at how it can test control efficacy, help infosec programs understand where actual cyber risk resides, and throwing a little love to my red team friends and how you can use it to automate the red team boring stuff. Let's go. What's up, everybody? If you're new here, I'm Dr. Gerald Dozier. Welcome to Simply Cyber. Now, a basic view of the living organism that is an information security program involves a lot of analyzing where your weaknesses are or gaps with respect to threats to your business and prioritizing where to invest dollars, time, and people to close those gaps and ultimately reduce cyber risk. That's the name of the game here, right? So once you analyze, prioritize, and budget, you plan and execute on the plan, right? Here's my biggest risk. Here's a solution that reduces that risk to an acceptable level. It's going to cost X and take, this amount of time. Let's go. Most security professionals accept that now the control is in place. We have multi-factor authentication. It's working as planned. Everybody who logs into anything has to, use multi-factor, and now you can move forward onto the next risk-reducing priority, right? So you chalk it up as in place. You adjust your risk profile according to whatever program you're using, and you report to the board and the shareholders or whomever. We're good to go. But in reality, controls aren't put in place correct every time. There's timing, fatigue, lack of skill, etc. They're all real reasons that this can happen literally every day. And as your threat model changes, the efficacy of your controls may change as well. For example, that multi-factor, right? Oh, we've got multi-factor, so we're good to go. Tell the insurance company that we're going to have a lower insurance premium, but you only put it on, say, your Office 365 infrastructure, your VPN concentrator, your Citrix workspaces, remote access by vendors. Those don't have multi-factor on it, but you're reporting that you have it. Reality and the plan aren't always aligned, right? And it happens all the time. So let's unpack this a bit more to really crystallize how this can happen. So what's the problem in the market, right? EDR efficacy is assumed. EDR, endpoint detection and response, your Carbon Blacks, your Cylance, your Microsoft Defender, all these major ones, they are touting that they'll block everything. And it's always the marketing copy that says that it's like the best product ever, right? But you're assuming when you put it in that it blocks all those things. And in reality and in practice, and you can see this on MITRE ATT&CK, where they have an objective bake-off between products against the same tests, that not all EDRs catch all the things. Additionally, pen testing, right? You hire a penetration tester to come in, they kick in a hole in the side of your business, they find your AD, they get domain admin, all the things that pen testers do. It's just a point in time though, right? It's like on March 1st, the pen testing group found this and it costs, $15,000 to $20,000. And then you're not going to have them back for a year, maybe if you're, maybe quarterly if you're like a financial services, a little bit more aggro. But the thing is, if Log4Shell drops or Bluekeep drops or, any kind of dynamic threat or vulnerability crops up, you don't know if you're at risk until the pen testing team comes back, right? Also, there's emerging threats, like I just mentioned. Maybe the Russian-Ukrainian thing pops out and you're a company that does business in one of those countries, and now all of a sudden there's a heightened focus of attack on you or your industry or something like that. So the risk profile is constantly shifting, right? Another common one is misconfigurations, that they're not caught during an audit or when you're doing a conversion or maybe a merger and acquisition and you're bringing in more tech and hooking it up to your existing tech. There can be a lot of technical gaps that you don't even really know about until they crop up, right? So Cymulate is the product that we're going to be looking at. And we've had multiple people from Cymulate on Simply Cyber Live as guests, right? Arian Seghetti, a really great guy, came on. We got a little bit more technical. Dave Klein's been on the show a few times. I do want to preface this all by saying that I did get paid to make this video. So this is like a sponsored video by Cymulate, but the opinions and my thoughts and everything are all mine. They're not influenced by that sponsorship. And more importantly, I have used this product. The whole reason that this collaboration even came to be is because I used the product in my in my environment, the environment I'm responsible for protecting, and I enjoyed the product. I talked to them. That's why, they started coming on Simply Cyber, because we started to develop that relationship. So anyways, I've used the product. I like the product. I'm going to tell you what I like about the product. I'll also tell you a couple things that bother me about the product. So this is Cymulate's website, and their platform is basically a cloud-based solution that allows you to execute adversarial type activities on your environment, essentially simulating as if you're actually being attacked. And when I say simulating, I guess I really mean emulating, because they do run the attacks. They're basically minimally defanged as can be, but they are executing the attacks and then they clean it up afterwards. It's actually pretty cool. So the three features that I personally was interested in using the product for my particular program and wanting to evaluate was their ability to do immediate threats, which I love, and I'll dig into that and show you that. My ability to prioritize vulnerabilities and the attack surface of my external facing endpoints and my general end user endpoints as well, which basically allowed me to focus my energy and efforts on where I should be patching or where I should be configuring for highest risk reduction in value. And then also I liked the scenarios and campaigns. The scenario looks at how kind of the security operations group performs, how SOAR performs. Now, I wasn't using SOAR, but I was using security operations, but I could, as my program matures, I could have used it for that capability. Another really interesting thing to point out, and I said it in the intro, is that while I use this tool exclusively as a blue teamer in order to test the efficacy of my controls, identify my weaknesses and gaps and misconfigurations, the tool does have a feature that could be weaponized or utilized for red teamers. Because Cymulate will run a bunch of the basic low-hanging fruit type attacks on an environment and report back if those attacks would be successful or not, a red team or pen testing group can come in with the product and actually just kind of point it, blast it at the environment, confirm what the low-hanging fruit is, and then actually allow the human pen testers and red teamers to focus on more sophisticated, tailored attacks for that particular client, for that particular environment. Obviously, if it's a red team, they're emulating TTPs. Some of those TTPs might be, low-hanging fruit, and then the more advanced stuff you could finesse in yourself. Another really interesting use case that I haven't used it for, but I would use it for, is bake-offs. Now, a bake-off is basically where two vendors, right? So like, let's say Carbon Black and SentinelOne both want me to buy their product, right? These are two EDR solutions. What I can do is I can install SentinelOne on a computer and Carbon Black on a computer, and then run the Cymulate tool against both of them and get back an objective report on what basically each product stopped and allowed through. So you can compare really apples to apples. And that's really huge value, especially with EDR solutions, because those are very important, right? Obviously, for protecting your environment, and also very expensive. So you want to make sure that you only invest once and that you don't have to, go 12 months and then roll back the EDR project and roll out another one because you ended up buying hot trash EDR by accident, right? Okay, so let's actually take a look at the product itself. So because it is cloud-based, it is just a website that you log into, very straightforward and simple. You do install a light agent on some endpoints. Now, here's a really cool thing that I like about this particular platform, right? So this one jumped out to me as a win. If you have kind of a standard build that you push out to your environment, right? Like, oh, here's our client workstation build, here's our server build. You really only need one instance of each of those builds and put the Cymulate agent on it and test it, right? Because if you run a test against a common build and, let's say like ransomware gets through, right? Like some variant of ransomware gets through, you don't need to run it on every endpoint in your environment. You just need to run it on one avatar of your environment, essentially, right? So I like that because it's lightweight. Plus, you can kind of have it off on a different segment if you want to do that. You do want to run this tool in production though, because it will be testing your firewall capabilities, your DNS resolution if you have wildfire type stuff going on, your email gateway. It'll send malicious emails through. Again, it all cleans up on the back end, but you can't use this really in a lab and test the efficacy of your production controls, right? So hopefully that makes sense, right? You can't test your production. You'd have to literally have the lab be identical to production, which you're never going to get because, Carl, the engineer, will, tweak something or add some type of custom shadow IT something in the environment. So as I mentioned before, you can have avatar build and run Cymulate against it, so that wouldn't pick up on shadow IT. So you can see here that it kind of goes from left to right as far as essentially the kill chain, right? So you've got your OSINT here, your initial foothold, execution and command and control, lateral movement, and then data exfil is their actions on objectives. A couple of things I want to show here that I really like. You see I'm running a couple different things. This is your main dashboard. You can get an overall score on the health of your program. Across the top, you can see scenarios. I'll take you on a little tour. Within the scenarios, you can see that I've been running some demos here, or running some simulations in a demo environment. It gives you, basic standard dashboard type stuff, like how many findings per operating system, top 5 attacks. This is fine, but I feel like this screen is more useful for like if you were really implementing this on the regular in your environment. So one feature that I really liked about the platform that I was using on the regular is this immediate threats. Now, immediate threats are basically brand new things that have just come out, and it's not uncommon for really mainstream news stories to get the question like, are we vulnerable to this? Are we susceptible to this? With this thing, they update it. You can see I'm filming this on September 18th. They have a brand new one right here for September 18th. Or you know what? US Cert Alert Vice Society. This is a story that we covered in the daily cyber threat briefing. So let's check it out. Say we get asked, hey, are we susceptible to this particular attack? So you can see immediate threat intelligence, it's running. You can actually schedule this. I didn't do this when I tested this solution, but you can schedule it. So basically when you come in for the morning, you have already executed the immediate threats to test whether or not it would actually work in your environment or if you're susceptible to it. Now, with immediate threats, it's important to note that typically it's just like IOCs or including hashes, file hashes, and IP addresses. So maybe we can take a look at this Vice Society one and see what it's about. We're back in here. You can see here's the IOCs right there. These are hashes, as I thought, for this executable that runs, more hashes, and then 2 IP addresses. Obviously, the C2 infrastructure, I would assume, for Vice Society. So what the immediate threat is doing is seeing whether or not it could communicate to these IP addresses, right? So if these IP addresses have been taken down, then obviously it won't be able to communicate. But if you're running kind of a firewall that's dynamically updated or something like that, you might actually be blocked already. And that's what you would want from being able to communicate to these addresses. So if Vice Society isn't able to pull down second stage payloads and encrypt your stuff, right? Also, your EDR solutions looking for these hashes and blocking or alerting on them. So this is why I like it. I mean, it's not running Vice Society's ransomware on your box. It is just using the immediate, IOCs that it has access to. But I just like it. It gives you that a little bit more confidence, because if you have worked in the industry for a while and you get the question, hey, are we susceptible to X, whatever it is? Before, it would just be like kind of a subjective guess, like, oh, are we susceptible to Vice Society? Well, Vice Society is ransomware, so we do have backups. We do run this EDR solution, which should stop it. And, we do end user awareness training, so people would probably not fall for the fish, right? There's a lot of like gray area with all that I just said. The tools should work. Staff should know, but you can't say with any definitive certainty that the EDR solution will stop it, that the firewall will block the traffic unless you test it. And that's really the cool value to me of the Cymulate product. So this is the immediate threats. We'll come back and check. You can see here, if you are getting questions about, an immediate threat, there's links here to give you some more intel on what it is, obviously the CVEs that it's exploiting, and the tags for what it is. They have a link in here to attack matrix if you're interested in seeing kind of where it stacks up across the matrix. Okay, let's continue on. Another awesome one that I liked was the endpoint security, to be able to tell whether or not your EDR solution was worth a crap at blocking and protecting. So I've already run this because it is a really long executing report. You can see here are the reports. They do stay historical, so you can see how things evolve over time. And if you've done certain testing, again, you can schedule all these to run automatically. So it's kind of like a pen test a day if you wanted to do that, or a pen test a week, versus, having to schedule a pen testing team to come in. Obviously, a pen testing team is going to have a human element to it, so it's going to be a little bit more thorough, but this is a great option. I'm going to look at my overview for my endpoints to see how my EDR solution is stacking up. And here you go. You can see I ran several different tests here, from a ransomware scenario perspective, 91% of the attacks were successful. 343 were run, 313 were successful, only 118 were detected. So I'm going to drill into this just so you can get some more intelligence on what it is. Okay, so a scheduled, a Reg Server 32 SCT, a ransomware fixed key was the behavior, successfully worked. And let's take a look. Clicking on more information, you can see how it drills down in it. This is another thing that I really like. It literally shows you step by step of where it went. And if your EDR solution actually does stop it, like say right here, then you can say, okay, well, it wouldn't have fully executed, but I do have some gaps here. And, the other half, you're not really sure because the EDR would stop it at this point. But you could see here, it executed a payload using the Reg Server 32 executable. It then found a folder to encrypt. It developed the key, and then it started encrypting those files in the folder. Basically, this approach to ransomware would have been 100% successful in this environment. And I do believe that this endpoint is actually running an EDR solution. So this just shows you, like, even with an EDR solution, you're not 100% protected from different malware, including this particular ransomware strain. You can see here, you can click more info on any of these to get more info, and it really gives you this intelligence around how this Reg Server 32 executable is actually used. It gives you some insight into how detection could work. It tells you what sysmon IDs to look for, Windows event IDs. So there's a lot of great information in here on how to mitigate it. You can get Sigma rules also. Obviously, you can do that for all these. So if you were beginning to prioritize your risks, if you were trying to get an idea of how good you are at protecting from ransomware, which is basically one of the number one risks in our industry right now, you would have quantifiable information that you could report to management on how we're doing. Plus, this makes it a huge, huge benefit if you're trying to request budget for new technology or to demonstrate why certain technology is not great. This will give you quantifiable information to make those arguments. You could even use it to negotiate down your renewal price for your EDR solution, because you can be like, listen, vendor, your product sucks. Look at, I'm testing all these things and it's not catching any of them. Either reduce the price, give me additional functionality at the same price, or I'm going to go somewhere else to find a tool that works better. You can see here for the controls, some of these didn't have integrations, some did. You can also see that, it lets you know if it saw the event, if it alerted on the event, if it identified it as an incident. Just to pick this one right here, running an MSHTA web file, we're going to click on integrations. So there is an integration for PA networks here. Very cool. Let's take a look. Okay, and you can see here, based on the integration, VMware, Carbon Black, Palo Altos. You can see it did catch the event, and you can see here where it was alerted in the PA firewalls. So very, very cool. All right, so let's look at a Trojan that got caught. All these were incomplete, so they didn't actually run fully. Let's take a look. So you can see here, the malware actually did execute correctly, successfully going up to loading a .NET payload. But when it tried to capture desktop screenshot, it was unsuccessful at that point. And because it didn't have a screenshot, it couldn't compress the image, then it couldn't upload the image to a server, etc., etc. So this is an example where the malware just failed to work correctly. Which is still a win for us, right? But not so good for the bad guy, which is absolutely fine with me. We need as much help as we can get on the defensive side. I want to see if I can find one where it was completely addressed. Okay, so just know I can't find any that were 100% successful at being blocked. It is a lab environment with one endpoint. So if it was successful, you would have seen status completely blocked or, defended against, and it would be bright green. Again, you want to kind of focus on the red ones because that's what you're going for, obviously. Let's look at another kind of piece of functionality. Looking at the dashboard, you can see they have the hopper for the lateral movement. We take a look at that. The hopper report, logged in user, were they able to move around? This is a new feature that was not available when I used this product last year. So it is interesting. It's cool that they're doing this. And it really just gives you visibility into the actual efficacy of the controls in your environment. Final things I'll talk about really quickly. They do have advanced scenarios, which shows you the entire MITRE ATT&CK framework. Is with these scenarios right here, they're pre-configured scenarios based on best practices, based on what Cymulate is seeing in market and how people are doing it. So, Cymulate best practice, ransomware, etc. With the advanced scenarios, you can actually put together a little bit of your own scenario if you were looking for certain things. That's my understanding of this particular aspect. So it gives you a little bit of that flexibility to be able to tune this for your environment. For me personally, the canned ones, the best practices, etc., that's plenty for me right now, simply because in my environment, like many of us, there's a lot of low-hanging fruit that has high risk and is easy to correct. You just need to know about them, and that's kind of what this tool is helping me discover. So I would obviously go off and fix all of that. With the campaigns, you can see here they have attack surface management. So if you wanted to do, but you can run a full kill chain campaign, which would essentially allow you to run an entire kind of pen test experience on your environment and get everything from initial compromise all the way to crown jewels. The entire thing would run. I was unable to actually get this to run in my environment. Again, this is a lab though, so I have like one endpoint. I don't have all the AD infrastructure and stuff like that. So that's, you know, the interesting thing. You could see here, just in my findings, this is kind of my global findings on how things look in my environment. If you wanted to test one specific, thing, you could see it all. Obviously, I feel like you're only going here if you're looking for a very specific test that you ran just to confirm it works. More often than not, at least for me, I would be going to the reporting. So one of the great things about it is that they have integrations for several of the more mainstream EDR solutions like, Carbon Black and Cylance and Cynet, oddly. SentinelOne, a lot of the major firewalls that you would see out there. So one of the really cool things is if you have a attack that is successful and can completely compromise your environment, right? They have these integrations that will allow you to quickly insert a new detection into your EDR solution and then be able to rerun that, assessment again, and then confirm, okay, like the EDR solution effectively detected it. Now let's tune it to quarantine or isolate or whatever it is. So you can run multiple iterations and really tune your EDR solution, and I absolutely love that. As of this video, they actually have several integrations that are out there. Unfortunately, the main reason that I ended up not going forward with this solution, even though I think it's a great solution, was because the EDR solution that we were using in my environment was not one of their integration ones. So it would have required me to do a lot of custom detection engineering. I'd have all the information to do it. What I didn't have was the time to invest in tuning my EDR the way I wanted. Now, I know they're constantly adding more, and actually Cymulate told me that they would create detections for that particular EDR solution, but there was a whole bunch of other stuff going on. So ultimately, that was the deal. Now, if you're interested, you can get a 2-week trial of the product. You can do like a bake-off and try it for yourself in your environment. There's a link down below. Again, they sponsored this video, but these opinions and thoughts are my own. Simply Cyber is not like affiliated with them in a way that, I get kickbacks or anything if you click on the link and check it out. It is what it is. I thought it was a really cool platform. The final thing I will tell you is that, I was using it for security control efficacy, validation, because I need to know if my controls are in place and they work right. And if they don't, how I needed ammunition to be able to make a request to management that our stuff isn't working and need to get it fixed, or I need to hire professional services to come in and do detection engineering. That was my use case. But the product does have a lot of potential that I just wasn't taking advantage of, and I wanted to share with you, right? So you can do security control optimization, but you can also do it for testing your SOC capabilities, right? So you run this, all sorts of things should be lighting up on your SOC. So your SOC analyst should be detecting it. They should be investigating it. Almost think of it as like purple teaming a little bit, so the SOC actually can be tested on their response times. I mean, obviously, don't be a jerk and run it at like 2 a.m. on a Friday night and trying to get that overnight on-call person, unless you're trying to test the efficacy of that particular thing. But you can test the SOC. You can test how effective the SIM is at detecting and being able to pull those things. If you want to do an incident response tabletop exercise, but get a little bit more telemetry and actually have more rich tabletop exercises, you can use the platform for that, because you're basically running attacks in your production environment. Again, they're defanged, but they will show up in your logs and stuff like that. Another use case that I could see is around vulnerability management and attack feasibility. So, okay, how vulnerable are we? Like, what's our external network look like? and what weaknesses are there. Okay, so there's like, like everybody runs a vulnerability scanner and you get like a million findings, right? But how real are they at being exploited? So you can use a tool like this to actually punch through whatever holes there are and validate, yes, you know what, that VPN concentrator, it is vulnerable, and yes, we're not going to update the SSL certificates, but there's this like obscure vulnerability over here that there's a known exploit that can just punch right through it. We really need to get this fixed, right? So it allows you to focus on vulnerability management and prioritize. And then the final thing I would talk about is, and again, this is more advanced for a more mature program, is supply chain and attack surface management. So you can use it on like from a supply chain perspective to understand who your third parties are and what their behavior looks like. I'm not suggesting you point this at third parties. Obviously, that would be not okay. But the entry points that the third parties are going in, you can test the efficacy of the controls that they've agreed to put in place, their endpoints and stuff like that. So again, a little bit more of a mature capability. I would focus on security control efficacy first, right? If you pay for all this tech and it's not doing a damn thing, then you have a false sense of security and you're sleeping easy at night, but you're completely sleeping out of ignorance, not out of comfort, knowing that you're protecting your organization at a level that is appropriate. So that's going to do it for this particular episode. Like I said, there's a link in the description below if you want to go check out the product. Sign up 2 weeks, right? Like they'll do bake-offs and stuff like that. It's a fairly lightweight thing to do a POC because it is a cloud-based system. You basically just take an agent, install it on a machine, and then run it. That's how I did it. I actually ran a 30-day POC, but I know they're doing 2 weeks right now. If you like it, cool, and if you don't, cool. It's no big deal, but I think it's a cool product, and it can definitely help information security programs that have less budget, less resources, less people in order to, actually add real security risk reduction and security value to an organization. Thanks again so much to Cymulate for sponsoring the video. I do enjoy working with them. That's cool. If you got value, hit the like and thumbs up and subscribe and all that other stuff. But otherwise, we'll see you on the next one. Take care, everybody.